Egypt's military leaders trade accusations with the Muslim Brotherhood. Could the growing rift between two powerful forces threaten to further divide the country? And what's in the best interest of the Egyptian people? This is Inside Story. Hello, welcome to the program. I'm Sameh Seif. Well, 14 months after the revolution that toppled Hosni Mubarak, Egypt's future remains as uncertain as ever. The country's ruling generals and the biggest political party appear locked in a struggle for control. Egypt's Muslim Brotherhood has postponed an open confrontation with the military rulers and other political players by delaying a decision on whether to field a candidate for the presidential elections. And meanwhile, members of a controversial panel responsible for drafting Egypt's new constitution have elected a Muslim Brotherhood member, Saad al-Khattatni, currently the Speaker of the Parliament, to head the committee. A number of liberal, leftist and independent figures withdrew from the panel, accusing Islamists of monopolizing the process that is expected to deliver the post-revolution charter. It's a process that could determine the balance of power in Egypt and the country's future identity. The non-Islamist groups have decided to form their own panel to write a constitution they say properly represents all the interests of Egyptian society. They've invited Islamists to join them.
There will be a parallel 100-member committee to draft the constitution. It will include the best of our Egyptian experts who are being consulted in writing constitutions in other countries, including Nobel Prize laureates, the genuine youth of the revolution, and those who have supported our revolution from day one.
Well, the Muslim Brotherhood's actions have raised concerns about its real intentions and prompted accusations that it's trying to grab more power. Through its political wing, the Freedom and Justice Party, the Muslim Brotherhood has been pushing the ruling generals to sack the current military-appointed cabinet and form a new coalition government. The military council has refused, and the two powerful players appear to be on a collision course. The group has also claimed a firm majority for Islamists in the 100-member Constituent Assembly, as we mentioned, giving them the strongest hand in writing the new constitution. The Muslim Brotherhood's potential presidential nominee is dividing the group. In recent days, they've talked about putting up a candidate for president, reversing a previous promise not to. Some members oppose that move, knowing it could anger the military. The generals are thought to be aiming at backing a consensus candidate for president. So, is the Egyptian revolution still on course for a democracy? Well, to help us answer this question, we're joined by our three guests, all of them in Cairo. Sameh Seif el-Yizal is a retired Egyptian general. He heads the el-Gomhuriyya Center for Political and Security Studies in Cairo. Nader Omran is a member of the political committee of the Freedom and Justice Party. That's the political wing of the Muslim Brotherhood. And Omar Ashour, director of the Middle East Studies at the University of Exeter, joins us. Welcome, all three of you. Good to have you with us. Sameh Seif el-Yizal, if I could start with you. What is your take on what we've seen in Egypt over the last few days and this growing spat between the military and the Muslim Brotherhood? And what are the military's real intentions here?
Right. Actually, they have started and initiated that like a few days ago, when the members of the Parliament of Freedom and Justice Party in the Parliament wanted the government to step down and to have a new government. And the problem came that SCAF refused the idea for the short period left until 31st of June. And since that time is not enough to form a new cabinet, as well as for the ministers to accept the job firstly, and secondly to do their job properly in that very short time, I think the idea was not very fruitful to the SCAF members, and they refused that. Since that time, the Freedom and Justice Party, they start to escalate the issues, and they came up with the announcement which they accused SCAF for many issues, and SCAF replied by doing second day another announcement, and I think that's why it's getting a bit hotter between the two parties.
Nader Omran, what's your view on this? And can I ask you as well, what is the Freedom and Justice Party's position right now on the possibility of putting up a candidate for president? Is that something that they will do?
Actually, the decision was supposed to be made last night, but actually it was postponed till next Tuesday, so we haven't decided yet.
All right, and what is your take on what's happened over the last few days? Is there a real power struggle going on here? What is the position of your party right now?
Yeah, we cannot say it's a power struggle. We can say just a kind of misunderstanding between us and the SCAF. Now what's happening is that the SCAF wants this cabinet to stay till 21st of June, but actually we saw that they are complete failure and they should step down and should be replaced by another cabinet which can run the Egyptian economy, for example, which is almost collapsing now, and there's no need to wait for another 60 or 70 days to have another cabinet. I mean, we are losing every day, and today the IMF is coming to Egypt again and to discuss about the loans, and I think this should be discussed with a real long-term cabinet, not just a transitional one.
Omar Ashour, what is your take on this? Are we looking at weeks of a real back and forth here between two of the most powerful forces in Egypt right now?
Yes, there are two interrelated crises now in Egypt. One has to do with the Constitutional Assembly formation, where the fault line seems to be Islamist versus non-Islamist. And another crisis that has to do with the actual powers of the parliament. The parliament here, this is a democratic transition process hopefully, and the parliament is the only elected institution at the moment, but it has very limited powers and mandate. When it asks for government ministers to show up, sometimes they ignore the request. It does not have the power to withdraw the confidence from a government. And therefore the FJP seems to be embarrassed in front of its own voters, sympathizers, and sometimes even in front of the grassroots and the mid-ranks of the Muslim Brothers, having been the elected majority, but could not do much in major crises like the Port Said massacre, in the crisis of the Americans who left the country despite being placed on trial. So they faced all these embarrassments, and their strategy seemed to be, we have two tools to pressure the government, either the Tahrir Square or the parliament. And in the last few months, they chose the parliament only. But now it seems for them that the parliament cannot push ahead in these crises and cannot attain the objectives of the revolution, and therefore they are in this dilemma. So the situation gets escalated when as the General Saif el-Yizal noted lately, because of this collision course. Obviously there can be a change in the situation, and it did not go into the point of no return yet, but this has to do principally with an exclusion crisis of the other political forces in the Constitutional Assembly, the women, the minorities, the youth, who have very limited representation in this Constitutional Assembly, but also has to do with the very limited powers that the parliament has in the country.
All right, we're going to talk a little bit more about some of that now, and about the two statements that were put out by the Muslim Brotherhood and the ruling military council. Now, the statement by the Muslim Brotherhood released on Saturday heavily criticizes the government. It hints at the possibility of the Brotherhood fielding a presidential candidate and mentions the controversy surrounding the makeup of the Constituent Assembly. The Freedom and Justice Party statement said, "We warn against the obstacles deliberately put in the way of Egypt's transition to democracy. The government must go. We put full responsibility on the SCAF for the negative effects of this government." In response to this statement, the ruling Supreme Council of Armed Forces issued its own statement on Sunday, hitting back at its critics and defending its intentions. The SCAF statement said, "Attempts to question our intentions regarding the integrity of the coming presidential elections and the popular referendum on the Constitution are mere baseless slander." The SCAF adds in its statement, in what many saw as a veiled threat, "We ask everyone to be aware of the lessons of history, to avoid mistakes from a past we do not want to return to, and to look towards the future." So pretty strong statements from both sides there. And General Seif el-Yizal, if I could put this to you, what do you think SCAF meant by that last statement that we were quoting there of not wanting to go back to the past? Was that a veiled threat?
No, I don't get it as a threat, but let me first comment about the statement from the Muslim Brotherhood. I would have expected that the statement comes from the Freedom and Justice Party, as they mentioned they are their political arm of the Muslim Brotherhood. So we have here two identities. The Muslim Brotherhood, which actually usually, and that's what we understand, is not involved in politics. And then the political party which handles the political issues of the Muslim Brotherhood, which is the Freedom and Justice Party. I would have expected that that statement comes from the party, not from the Muslim Brotherhood, as this is their maybe job and that's their duty. But anyway, let's face it, the Muslim Brotherhood came with a statement in reply. They started with the statement, and then the SCAF replied second day. The reply of SCAF actually conclude several issues, because what they are saying now, and I'm not really against Muslim Brotherhood, but I'm stating facts, and I'm analyzing what's in the field right now. The idea of saying that they expecting the Constitutional Court not to be fair, or at least the decision may be unquestionable, I think this is again unfair, because this is the highest court in Egypt, and we have to respect it, and respect any decisions comes from that highest court in Egypt. This is number one. Number two, in regard of what SCAF said, people here, they are translating that they are mentioning 1954 incidents after the 1952 revolution. I don't think it is related to that. It's not the same situation. It's not the same facts and same, I would say, environment. Again, like 1954. That's why the ideas and saying that SCAF are threatening the society through the Freedom and Justice Party and Muslim Brotherhood, I don't think it is correct. I think they are mentioning only that the cooling the situation and stop escalating the situation, maybe it is the best idea for Egypt and for the Egyptians.
Nader Omran, what's your response to that?
Yeah, I think the statement of Muslim Brotherhood at the beginning of this week was mainly directed just to show the public opinion what's going on. It's not a kind of sending a message to someone or receiving a message or trying to push somebody to do whatever. It's just a statement to show the people on the street who have voted and who have chosen FGP in the parliament the truth and the reality, and the people should decide. It was not directed, or it was not a kind of accusation to anyone, but at the same time, I think asking for the resignation of this cabinet is something which everybody have a consensus of, because it's something that nobody can say that this government is doing well. It's a big failure and it should go, and till now we don't know why the SCAF is trying to hold this government and they don't want to let it go.
Omar Ashour, you get a sense from this war of words between SCAF and the Muslim Brotherhood that the liberals, the leftists, and the youth groups that led the anti-Mubarak uprising to begin with are struggling to get their voices heard here.
That's true, although they prove to have more of a longer sight in that sense, because the demand not to appoint Prime Minister Ganzouri was a demand in Tahrir Square back in November. The Muslim Brothers at that point did not want to uphold this demand because they wanted to go through with the elections and have a more legitimate institution that represents the Egyptian people, and then after that voice their demands from that institution, which is the parliament, rather than voicing it from the confrontations of Mohammed Mahmoud and from Tahrir Square. Whereas most of the youth at that point were saying that Prime Minister Ganzouri will not resolve the Egyptian crisis at that point, and even a delegation from them, I was one of the members of this delegation, met with the members of the Supreme Council of the Armed Forces and relayed that message to them. And But at the moment, there is a very limited representation in the political process, in the major political processes that Egypt is witnessing now. In the Constitutional Assembly, you had one person, Ahmed Harara, from the Revolutionary Youth, so 1%, and you have very limited representation in the parliament as well. Most of the revolutionary youth groups could not organize themselves to be able to become political parties and to be able to represent themselves in the parliament. And therefore, the demand now is to be more inclusive in the Constitutional Assembly and to make their voice get heard by the stakeholders in the country. We have 4 major players now in the country. You have the Supreme Council, you have the deep state, the NDP remnants and the security generals, you have the Muslim Brothers / the Islamists, and you have the revolutionary youth who can mobilize in Tahrir Square but cannot win party politics and cannot win in elections.
Let's talk a little bit more now. Hold on a second. Let's talk a little bit more now about the efforts to draw up a new constitution. Now, Liberal MPs have made it clear they want the whole of the Egyptian society represented in drafting a new constitution.
The issue is not about the number of seats given to Islamists and secularists, it's about the marginalization of other social forces. I don't want to be a member in a constituent panel where other civil society organizations and human rights defenders are not represented. I don't want to be a member in such a panel where women make up only 6% of its total members.
So you heard there from Amr Hamzawi, the Liberal MP. Nader Omran, I want to put this to you. They feel that their voices are not being heard in these efforts to draw up a new constitution and that they're being freezed out of the process.
No, I don't think so. Actually, I don't agree with your honored guest. What he said that the revolutionary youth are just represented by one person. Actually, he should read the list of the committee again. He will find so many. Maybe Ahmed Harara is one of the famous revolutionary youth. It's just a symbol of something or an icon. But there are so many young people are represented, and we don't put this difference between revolutionary youth and Muslim Brotherhood. So far, it's more than 1 year now, I don't understand what's the difference. I mean, they are all everywhere in the parliament and in the Tahrir Square and in the streets. And this came by elections. Everybody who is opposing this kind of constitutional committee, please give us one other option how to do it, how to form this committee.
Well, you may hold on a second. You may have won a majority in these elections, and no one is disputing that. But doesn't that come with a certain responsibility that you have to draw up a charter for the future of the country that includes all Egyptians, not just the members, not just those in your party, not just your supporters.
Please read the list again. You will find everything. You will find Copts, you will find women, you will find leftists, you will find seculars. And actually, Islamists were represented in the parliament by 71%. And in the
well, evidently many of them don't feel that way. Let me just quote you. Naguib Sawiris, who, as you know, is the founder of the Free Egyptians Party. He says a constitution is being written by one force and one force alone. We tried our best, but it was no use. What do you say to that?
Of course, this is not true, because everybody is represented and it's by elections. What does everybody want? Whenever you get another 100%, if somebody's talking about consensus committee, it means that this committee should be composed of 5,000 persons or 50,000 persons, because everybody says it's not reasonable that that man or that figure or that Nobel laureate is not there in the committee. In that case, there are going to be more than 50,000. So let me make one thing clear here. This constitution, which are going to be drafted by this committee, is going to be put to referendum, to the people to vote. So if the people don't like it, they can say no.
All right, let's turn to General Seif el-Yizal. What is your take on this idea that many of those who began the protests in Tahrir Square feel that they have been freezed out of this process? Many of those who have been out on the streets for the last 14 months, and many who have suffered at the hands of security forces, their grievances have not been addressed in all of this.
In fact, let me start by saying that I agree and accept for what Mr. Omar Ashour said regarding the representation. In fact, I was a little bit surprised when I saw the representation of the members. For instance, just a few remarks. We have 48% of our population in Egypt are ladies, and ladies are only represented by 6%, or 6 ladies. 3 of them, I think, has already resigned. When you come to tourism, for instance, tourism is the 3rd main income to this country. No representation whatsoever from any expert into the tourism sector at all in this committee. Thirdly, laborers. We have 22 million laborers in this country. One man, only one representative, is representing the entire 22 million, which is maybe 1/4 of the population in Egypt. Minister of Foreign Affairs has sent a list of 5 ambassadors, and they gave the opportunity to the parliament to pick up 2 of them, any 2 they want. None of them has been represented and completely ignored, and no ambassadors, maybe 1 retired ambassador, which was not in the list, has been picked up and selected, but none of the 5 ambassadors, existing ambassadors in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, has been appointed or elected. Then there is a lot of I would say dilemma now in the Egyptian society regarding the representation of the society at that committee. I personally believe that many I would say sectors in Egypt has been neglected to be represented in this committee. The majority of the young youth has not been even not only represented but even picked up. Mr. Ahmed Harara already resigned. If Mr. Nader Omran is saying regarding the maybe Amr Hamzawi, if you consider him as from the young youth as well, he already resigned as well.
But General, sorry to interrupt because unfortunately our time is limited. But I just want to pick up on something you said earlier about people being neglected. If we're going to talk about that, let's talk about the hundreds of Egyptians who have been killed over the last 14 months at the hands of security forces in Egypt. What is being done to address that?
Right. If this question to me, I don't see any link between putting 100 people rightly to represent everybody. Maybe it could be a good idea to get some of the maybe families of the killed people or injured, like Mr. Ahmed Harara, put more of that. But anyway, again, it's misrepresentation in the committee, and that's what I'm saying.
Well, I'm not talking about the committee. I'm talking about the fact that, in the simplest terms, not a single person has been held responsible for the killings of protesters in Egypt over the last 14 months.
Some of them are still in the court, military court and civilian courts. If you're talking about officers in the army and officers in the police force, I think many of them still in the court. Court decided for some cases and not yet decided for other cases, but it's not yet finished. It's still under process.
All right, let's go back to Omar Ashour for more on this. How do you see this playing out? Do you continue to see a struggle here, particularly over the fact that, as we mentioned earlier, there are a lot of grievances that have not been addressed here?
It is true, but let me go quickly on the Constitutional Assembly part, because if you looked at the list that has been read and read again and then classified and then categorized, you got only 3 persons under the age of 40. 2 of them are affiliated with the Muslim Brothers at one point or another, and one, who's Ahmed Harara, is the only guy who's, you can say, independent from the Revolutionary Youth. And there was many others that could have been on that list if the majority party had wished to do that. But the other problem is the problem of the criteria. There was almost no criteria or a procedural aspect to put these names on the list. The MPs were handed a list of 2,000 names without even an introduction to these names, and they were told to choose from it. So it was a very chaotic procedure, and the names that made it through were the names that the FJP and the other party, the Noor party, had agreed upon initially.
That is going to have to be the last word. We're going to have to leave it there because unfortunately we're out of time. But we will certainly be following all of the developments that happen in Egypt over the next weeks and months. I want to thank all 3 of our guests for taking part in Cairo: Sameh Seif, el-Yizal, Nader Omran, and Omar Ashour. Many thanks for your time. And that's it for this edition of Inside Story. Remember, if you want to send us your feedback, just email your thoughts to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.